of the WCHA, the National Collegiate Hockey Conference, which is where Nebraska Omaha is in. So, it would be interesting to see more club teams move up. I know University of Illinois has a really strong club program that would be good enough to, if they get the funding, could be in the Big Ten Conference. And possibly, it would be interesting to get that recruiting area, Illinois and Iowa and Indiana involved in that. So, yeah, it'd be nice to see more schools try to adapt hockey into their programs. Like you mentioned earlier, though, when you have the money flow of football and the different women's sports and men's sports that they balance out, it's kind of hard to find any extra revenue to support a hockey program.
Does it bother you? Because it bothers me when I see, it's kind of like those "and one" T-shirts where it has like an ironic phrase or something stupid on them. But when I see like somebody from Creighton wearing a football jersey, I get that they had football back in the 40s, but a football jersey now, they don't have a football program. Yeah, it's really, you're being really hilarious. Or a hockey jersey from like the University of whatever that doesn't have a club team or an NCAA legalized team. Does it bother you when you see those type of jerseys out there?
No, not really. I mean, a lot of them were done kind of as fashion statements. I remember in the 90s when I was a kid growing up, hockey jerseys were just all the rage, even of people who didn't even watch hockey. I mean, I remember having friends who had jerseys and they couldn't even tell you what the nickname of the team was, as if they thought it was cool and their parents went and bought it for them. So that's kind of what took off with a lot of different, the jersey trend of the 90s. So that's why you see a lot of those things, but it doesn't really bug me that much. I mean, but somebody's saying like, if they didn't know the history, they're thinking that, that school had a hockey team or a football team. And it's just like, well, that'd be kind of annoying, but no, it's mostly more of a fashion statement, I think, than anything else.
Yeah, well, as a fashion statement, I got a St. Louis Blues jersey, and then I got beat up at the bar, so it wasn't much of a fashion statement. I'm kidding. But, Kansas City Chiefs losing to the Raiders right now, 24-20. You're probably glad you didn't put anything on this game. But
yeah.
How much does this hurt the Chiefs if they lose this game in the power rankings, the ever so important power rankings of Trent Dilfer and Merrill Hodge? How much does this hurt these guys?
I mean, yeah, they're pretty much going to write them off on the face of the earth. They're pretty much, this team's got to rebuild from scratch, according to Trent Dilfer. But I mean, who's really listening to Trent Dilfer these days? I mean, this game hurts the Chiefs. This is a game they more than likely should have won. I mean, on paper at least. It was a trap spot looking at a schedule perspective. Going into Oakland team hasn't won a game all year at home, and they're playing at home on a night game. Everything was in their favor. They had nothing to lose. This was basically their Super Bowl. You don't want to go 0-16. So it is a tough spot. At the same time, the Chiefs should have played a better game. I've only watched bits and pieces of it. I watched the replay of it overnight, but from what everything I've seen, their offense just hadn't really been clicking much, and Oakland's been just swarming them on defense the whole night. So Kansas City's still in the race, but they're not out of it by any means because they have to play Denver next week at home. So that's going to be a huge game. So they're still in the thick of things. You can't count them out just yet.
Okay, who's going to get banned from Subway commercials first? Justin Tuck for playing for an 0 team in Oakland, or Robert Griffin III for blaming his teammates for all his failures that don't relate to Subway commercials involving sriracha sauce?
That's an interesting question. I'd probably say RG3. I think everything's going to kind of come crashing down for this kid. He just doesn't. I mean, it's unfortunate too because he's talented, but there's just a lot of there's just so many different things that have gone wrong with him in the last couple of years with the franchise and his injury issues and so forth. So, I see RG3 kind of fading away slowly. I think Kansas City just lost the ball on downs. So that's
just win,
going to seal it up for Oakland.
Just win, baby. The Raiders are going to win. Beat Kansas City in your face. Kansas City. Take that.
Yeah.
Toronto beat you. Reed, your mustache isn't good enough. You can't beat Derek. Face it and move on. As far as looking at the getting back to civilized conversation, as far as the Raiders go, how much of a rebuilding process do you think this is for them?
Like I said, they're gonna have to. I mean, they gotta do something serious and drastic. Maybe as weird as it would seem, maybe this franchise moving to San Antonio would be a good start. Like California has not treated this team well in the last 20-something years. I mean, the days of Marcus Allen and Howie Long are long, long past all of us. And, if they can't fill up the stadium, they've had issues with the stadium, and LA obviously can't really hold on to a team. So maybe, moving them to Texas and throwing them in the race with the Texans and the Cowboys. I mean, you think about the top brands, not just teams, but top brands in the NFL. You have to go to Dallas Cowboys, and right up there with them would be the Oakland Raiders. I mean, that, like I said, the silver and black, that trademark is just as strong and visible as the star in Dallas. So, maybe moving them there would be something that could really shake that franchise up and get them going in the right direction in the century.
What's more likely, Raiders and Rams in LA next year, or let's say in the next 2 years, Raiders and Rams in LA, or Rams stay in St. Louis and the Raiders move to San Antonio?
I would have to say the latter on that. I would say the Rams staying in St. Louis and the Raiders moving to San Antonio. I don't see both of those teams moving to LA. I could see where the Rams move to LA and then the Raiders move to San Antonio. I know the Rams have had some issues with trying to solidify a stadium deal with the Edward Jones Dome, and I don't know if they're looking for a new stadium in St. Louis or looking to rebuild the stadium. I haven't followed too closely on that, but I can't see LA going from not having a team at all for the last 20 years to having two teams again that they got rid of, in that same stretch. So, like I said, and I don't know how big of a player San Antonio really is for the Raiders to move, or how talks are going with the Raiders getting a new stadium in Oakland or a new stadium in LA. So it'd be something to definitely keep an ear out for, especially during the off season. It'll be an interesting story as things develop and as the season ends.
How much? Okay, on to the NBA. How much longer are you gonna put money against the Philadelphia 76ers?
Well, you know what? I haven't been betting against them as a team. So far this year, they've been catching a lot of points. Like I said, my theorem is that I look at playing underdogs and siding with teams on the points, but I don't see this team winning a game outright for quite some time. They are really bad. Everybody's been talking about this whole. People say it's ridiculous and say, Kentucky's men's basketball team could beat the 76ers. It would be a lot closer of a game than people want to believe. This is. I haven't seen a basketball team this bad, and I've seen some bad basketball teams, but the Sixers team is horrendous. They're absolutely horrendous, and whether they're trying to play this bad or I don't even think it's mostly them completely tanking. I think that they just have a lineup that cannot compete in the NBA. It's done on purpose, obviously, for draft stock and positioning, but even when they try to play their hardest, they still look like crap.
Right. What do you think the point spread would be for a Sixers versus Kentucky Wildcats game?
Well, based on what I've heard from a lot of people, because a lot of people just believe that even the Sixers, as bad of a team that they are, that NBA players are still completely superior to the college game, which 10, 15 years ago, yes, it would be a dramatic difference. But if you look at now how these guys are, you got the whole one-and-done system, a lot of younger guys who not only are they jumping out early, maturity-wise, but just game level-wise. There's a lot of first, second-year players, third-year players even in the NBA that look like they would have benefited from staying in college a little bit longer. With that being said, I would think the line would open where the Sixers would probably be favored by 10, 11 points, and I believe that money would quickly pour in on Kentucky and move that number somewhere closer to probably about 6 or 7, which I think is a fair assessment. I really think, looking at how good this Kentucky team is and how bad the Sixers are, there's really not too far of a disparity. I mean, the Sixers are mostly, it's like I said, between first and fourth year players. So you're looking at an advanced college team over a current college team, in my opinion.
Well, let me just go through. Okay, the Sixers, I'm not on the bandwagon of an NFL team losing to an NCAA football team. Just not going to happen. I just don't buy that.
No, that's not going to happen.
But Philadelphia 76ers, they're so bad. I mean, and look at these players. Jakar Sampson was a marginal at best player at St. John's.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Davies, if they don't lose him at BYU, they might make a deep run with him and Jimmer if he doesn't, break the code. Embiid's injured. You look at Alexei Shved, pretty average player. Henry Sims, not a great NBA player. Tony Roden, not a great NBA player. KJ McDaniels, better than we expected, but marginal NBA player. These guys are still all young.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys could still be in college. Michael Carter-Williams, overrated, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky can beat them. And, okay, somebody tweeted out, a 7-game series. Somebody said that they could beat them in a 7-game series. I'm not buying that, but one game, anything can happen in one game. You've seen that in the NCAA tournament. Kentucky last year beat Wichita State. Wichita State was a better team than Kentucky last year.
Yeah.
And lost to Kentucky. Anything can happen in a one-game setting. Kentucky could definitely beat Philadelphia 76ers. Anybody else in the NBA? No. Sixers are so low on talent and so low rent, they would lose to Kentucky. They would have a shot at losing to Kentucky. That's the only team.
Yeah. No, I agree. And if you want to, you can get technical with it as far as where the game would be played. If you have the Sixers going into Rupp Arena and playing Kentucky at home, I would certainly say Kentucky wins that ball game. Now, you get to a neutral site, anything can happen. And if you have Kentucky playing at Sixers Arena, it's still not really that big of an advantage, but the Sixers more than likely be favored to win by a larger margin, and more than likely would win. But yeah, the Sixers are bad enough to where this conversation has levity and weight to it. Unlike people were saying a couple of years ago about could Alabama beat the Jacksonville Jaguars? That's asinine to think that a college football team could run with an NFL team. But like you said, with the youth movement we're seeing in the NBA, and a lot of guys who are jumping too early, in my opinion, this Sixers team would not just walk over this year's Kentucky team.
Before I let you go, again, Alex, do you want to tell everybody where you can find you on Twitter and the internets?
Yeah. Once again, at AX Sports on Twitter. I also have an Instagram now, too, if anybody really cares about that. It's AlexB_369. And then I'm on my website, axsmithsports.com. I'm on KellyandVegas.com, and I'm on VegasInsider.com.
Well, Alex, I appreciate you coming on again for the second hour. It was a surprise. But, again, thank you. And we'll talk again soon. You are listening to the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. We will be back with Bob's thoughts here on the Bob Sullivan Show.